Most people don't fail because they're weak. They fail because the moment it hurts, the moment life throws fire at them, they tap out. They quit on their dreams, on their body, on their future. Today, we're solving that problem. We're answering the question, what happens when you refuse to give up? And I'll tell you right now, the answer will shake you because it'll show you a version of yourself you've never met. Listen up. Everybody wants to talk about success. Everybody wants to flex the highlight reel, but nobody wants to face the one thing that separates the real from the pretender's pain. Pain is the entry fee to growth. Pain is the toll life demands every time you want to level up. And the truth is most people will never pay it because the moment life gets heavy, the moment their lungs are burning, their muscles are screaming, their mind is telling them to quit, they fold, they check out. They convince themselves they weren't built for it. But let me tell you something. Refusing to give up is about standing in that fire long enough for the heat to change you. It's about refusing to walk away when everything in your body says run. That's where growth happens. That's where the transformation begins. I've seen people tap out right before the breakthrough. They push a little, they grind a little, but when the suffering shows up, they call it quits. And then they look at people who made it and call them lucky. Lucky. No, they weren't lucky. They were forged. They were beaten down, broken, stretched to the edge, but they refused to stop. And because they didn't stop, they became something new. That's the price of growth. You don't buy it with comfort. You don't buy it with half effort. You buy it with pain. Think about your own life. Every single moment you've grown didn't come when things were easy. It came when you were scared, when you were exhausted, when your mind said you had nothing left, but you found a way to keep going. That's the moment you felt yourself shift. That's the moment you realized you were capable of more than you thought. And that's exactly why pain is necessary. Without it, you stay soft. Without it, you stay the same. But with it, you find the edges of who you are and you start pushing past them. Let me paint this picture for you. Imagine you're running and your legs are shot. Your chest is on fire. Your head is screaming. Stop. 99% of people stop there. They think that's the limit. But that's not the limit. That's the starting line. That's the point where the old you die and the new you is born. Because when you refuse to quit, you teach your body and your mind that it doesn't own you. You own it. And every step after that moment of pain is growth. Every step after that is victory. See, pain is not your enemy. Pain is your greatest teacher. Pain is what strips you of your excuses. Pain is what reveals who you really are when the masks come off. And when you refuse to give up in the face of pain, you earn something most people will never touch: real growth. Not the fake kind you post on social media. Not the motivational quotes. I'm talking about the kind of growth that changes the way you walk, the way you think, the way you breathe. The kind of growth that nobody can take away from you because you bled for it. Most people want growth without the process. They want strength without struggle. They want the crown without the sacrifice. That's not how it works. The universe doesn't hand out greatness like a free sample. It makes you bleed for it. It makes you crawl through nights of doubt, through mornings when you don't want to get up, through hours of grinding when nobody's watching. And the only ones who make it through are the ones who look pain in the face and say, "You will not break me." Every scar you carry, every tear you've shed, every ounce of pain you've endured, it all adds up. It all builds you into something unshakable. People see strength and think it's natural. No, strength is pain repurposed. Strength is what happens when you keep walking through fire and come out harder than steel. And if you're willing to refuse to give up, if you're willing to hold that line when the storm comes, you'll find that growth waiting for you on the other side. So the next time you're in that place where everything hurts, where quitting feels easy, I want you to remember this: pain is not there to destroy you. Pain is there to mold you. Pain is there to strip away the weakness and reveal the strength. You don't grow when you quit. You grow when you refuse. You grow when you stand there broken and beaten and still whisper to yourself, "I'm not done yet." That's the real secret. That's what separates the few from the many. That's what happens when you refuse to give up in the face of pain. You get growth that nothing else in this world can give you. Here's the brutal truth: your feelings don't matter when it comes to achieving greatness. Your emotions, your mood, your temporary bursts of motivation, they're weak, fragile, and they lie to you every single day. One morning you wake up and you feel like grinding, the next morning you don't. If your life is run by that roller coaster of feelings, you'll never make it past average. You'll never break out of the cycle of starting strong and quitting halfway. That's why discipline has to come before feelings. Discipline is the steel that holds you together when your feelings try to tear you apart. When you refuse to give up, you stop listening to the voice in your head that says, "I don't feel like it." Because let me tell you something, you'll never feel like it. You'll never feel like waking up at 4 a.m. when it's freezing outside. You'll never feel like grinding after a long day when your body is tired and your mind is begging for comfort. Feelings will always choose the easy way out. Discipline chooses the hard road every single time. That's the difference between people who talk about goals and people who live them. You want to know why so many people fail? It's not because they don't have talent. It's not because they don't have opportunities. It's because they keep waiting for motivation to show up like some hero that's going to drag them through the mud. Motivation doesn't show up every day. Discipline does. Discipline is there when you're exhausted. Discipline is there when your mind is screaming at you to stop. Discipline is there when the world doubts you, ignores you, and tells you it's impossible. And when you refuse to give up, you're proving that discipline is stronger than the lies your feelings whisper. Think about this: every time you give in to your feelings, you build a habit of weakness. You train your mind to quit. But every time you choose discipline instead, you're carving a new identity. You're telling yourself, I don't care if I feel tired. I don't care if I feel scared. I don't care if I feel lazy. I'm showing up anyway. That's what changes everything. That's what builds the kind of consistency that normal people can't even comprehend. Feelings are temporary, but the results of discipline are permanent. When you go to the gym, even though you feel broken, when you put in the hours of studying, even though you'd rather waste time scrolling, when you stick to your grind, even though nobody's clapping for you, that's where you build power. That's where you create a life on your terms instead of being a slave to your moods. Discipline isn't glamorous. Nobody cheers when you wake up early. Nobody applauds when you stick to the plan. Nobody celebrates when you walk away from comfort and choose the grind. But later they all wonder how you became so strong, how you built that body, how you created that life, how you kept climbing when everyone else stopped. The answer is simple. You didn't listen to your feelings. You listened to your discipline. The truth is, when you refuse to give up, you're not just fighting the world. You're fighting yourself. You're fighting the part of you that wants comfort, the part of you that wants the easy way out. And the only weapon strong enough to win that war is discipline. You can't negotiate with laziness. You can't negotiate with weakness. You've got to kill it with consistent, disciplined action, day after day, hour after hour. That's how you build a mind that doesn't break. That's how you build a body that doesn't quit. I know this isn't what people want to hear. They want to hear that success is about passion, about excitement, about inspiration. But that's a lie sold to keep you soft. Passion fades. Excitement burns out. Inspiration disappears the second life punches you in the face. Discipline doesn't. Discipline is the one thing that's always there if you're willing to build it. Discipline is the reason you lace up your shoes when your legs feel like concrete. Discipline is the reason you open that book when your brain feels fried. Discipline is the reason you keep moving when everyone else has stopped. And the beautiful part, discipline compounds. Every time you choose it over your feelings, you get stronger. Every time you silence that voice of weakness, your identity changes. You stop being someone who hopes for success and you become someone who guarantees it through action. You stop being a victim of moods and you become the master of your reality. So when life comes at you with pain, with fatigue, with excuses, remember this: your feelings don't get to decide your destiny. Discipline does. And when you refuse to give up, when you hold the line no matter how you feel, you build a life that's untouchable. Momentum is a weapon, but most people never hold it long enough to realize its power. The truth is, success doesn't come from one big moment, one big breakthrough, one lucky shot. It comes from stacking small wins on top of each other until you become unstoppable. And the only way to stack those wins is by refusing to give up when it gets hard. Every time you keep moving forward when your body screams no, you're building momentum that can't be touched. Momentum doesn't start when you feel like it. It doesn't start when the stars align or when conditions are perfect. It starts when you take the first step, when you make the first move, when you push through the resistance that tells you to stay comfortable. And here's the thing about momentum. It's hard to build, but once you have it, it's harder to stop. It becomes a force that pulls you forward, even on the days when you don't have the energy, even on the days when your mind is filled with doubt. Look back at every time you quit something. Maybe you started a workout routine. Maybe you tried to launch a business. Maybe you wanted to learn a skill. You showed up for a few days, maybe even a couple of weeks, but then you stopped. And the second you stopped, the momentum died. It's like trying to push a heavy boulder. At first, it feels impossible. Every inch takes everything you've got. That's why so many people give up before the rock even moves. But the ones who keep pushing, the ones who dig deep and refuse to stop, eventually that boulder starts rolling. And once it rolls, once you get that momentum going, it takes on a life of its own. That's what unstoppable looks like. But here's the catch: momentum demands consistency. You can't build it with half effort. You can't build it by showing up one day and disappearing the next. Momentum doesn't care about your excuses, your moods, or your circumstances. It only cares that you keep moving. And every time you do, every time you put one more brick on the wall, one more rep in the set, one more hour into your grind, you're feeding the beast. The reason momentum is so powerful is because it transforms your identity. The first time you win, it feels impossible. The second time, it feels tough. But the 10th, the 100th, the 1,000th time, it becomes who you are. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries, and you start seeing yourself as someone who finishes. You stop doubting whether you can, and you start knowing that you will. That identity shift is where momentum turns you into a machine. Most people sabotage their own momentum because they keep stopping to check if it's working. They do a little work, then they pause. They want instant results, and when they don't see them, they quit. But when you refuse to give up, you stop measuring the outcome and start trusting the process. You understand that momentum is invisible at first. You don't see it, but it's there, quietly stacking, quietly compounding, until one day the world can't ignore you anymore. Let me make it clear, unstoppable momentum is not about speed, it's about direction. You don't need to sprint every day. You don't need to destroy yourself in a single moment. What you need is to keep moving forward, even if it's slow, even if it's ugly. Because slow progress is still progress, and progress fuels momentum. And once that momentum builds, it carries you faster and farther than you ever thought possible. Think about athletes, soldiers, entrepreneurs, anyone at the top of their game. They didn't get there because they were superhuman. They got there because they built momentum day after day, year after year. They refused to give up when others tapped out. They stacked their wins until momentum became their greatest ally. And once it did, nothing could stop them. Not failure, no doubt, not pain. Because momentum doesn't just carry you through victories, it carries you through setbacks too. It's what allows you to take a loss and keep swinging, to take a hit and keep marching. Momentum is about creating a force in your life that is bigger than excuses, bigger than laziness, bigger than fear. And it all starts with one choice, the choice to not quit. The choice to show up one more time, to push one more round, to grind one more day. Every time you make that choice, you're adding fuel to the fire. And sooner or later, that fire burns so hot, nothing can extinguish it. When you refuse to give up, you don't just build discipline, you don't just build toughness, you build momentum. And momentum is what separates the people who get stuck at the starting line from the people who finish the race. Momentum is what turns the impossible into the inevitable. Momentum is what makes you unstoppable. Everybody wants transformation. Everybody wants to change, to become stronger, sharper, tougher, unbreakable. But here's the part nobody wants to hear. Transformation doesn't happen in comfort. Transformation doesn't happen in the safe zone. Transformation only happens through suffering. And when you refuse to give up, when you lean into that suffering instead of running from it, you discover a version of yourself you didn't even know existed. Suffering is the ultimate mirror. It strips you bare. It shows you who you really are when the lights are off, when nobody's watching, when there's no applause, no recognition, no reward. It's just you and the pain. And in that moment, you can either back down or you can embrace it and let it shape you. That's where transformation lives. Not in the highlight reels, not in the victories, but in the dark, cold hours when you're hurting and you still keep moving. Think about it. Every breakthrough you've ever had came after suffering. You studied until your eyes burned. You trained until your body gave out. You worked until the world told you you were crazy. That suffering didn't destroy you. It rebuilt you. It tore down the weaker version of you and replaced it with someone stronger. That's the gift of suffering. But you only get that gift if you refuse to quit. Most people treat suffering like it's the enemy. They avoid it, hide from it, numb it with distractions, run from it every chance they get. And because of that, they never change. They stay exactly where they are, stuck in the same cycles, living the same story year after year. But the ones who embrace suffering, the ones who refuse to give up in the middle of the storm, those are the ones who transform. They walk out of the fire, forged into something the old version of themselves could never recognize. Suffering is not punishment. Suffering is the process. It's the chisel that carves away weakness. It's the hammer that shatters fear. It's the furnace that melts away excuses. Every second you stay in the fight, when you want to quit, is a second you're transforming. You may not see it at the moment. You may not feel it, but it's happening. Every rep, every step, every drop of sweat, an ounce of pain is building a new version of you. When you suffer and refuse to quit, you learn that pain is temporary, but transformation is permanent. The burn in your muscles fades. The exhaustion in your lungs passes. The doubt in your mind quiets. But the strength you earn from enduring, that stays with you forever. That's why suffering is so powerful. It gives you something that can't be taken away. Here's the raw truth: transformation hurts. It's not pretty. It's not Instagram friendly. It's not something you can fake. You can't Photoshop scars. You can't filter discipline. Transformation through suffering is real, and that's why it's rare. But the people who go through it, the ones who refuse to give up, come out the other side differently. They come out with a mind that's unshakable, a body that's resilient, a spirit that refuses to be broken. Think about a diamond. A diamond doesn't become a diamond without pressure. Without heat, it's just a rock. But under years of relentless pressure and fire, it transforms into something priceless. That's exactly what suffering does to you. It takes the raw, unrefined, fragile version of you and it forges you into something unbreakable. And every time you suffer and keep moving, Every time you suffer and refuse to give up, you're stacking that pressure, you're adding that heat, and you're moving closer to becoming the diamond you were meant to be. People will look at you one day and say, how did you become like this? How did you get this strong, this disciplined, this unstoppable? They won't see the nights you cried, the mornings you dragged yourself out of bed, the hours you put in when nobody believed in you. They'll only see the transformation. They'll only see the final product. But you'll know the truth. You'll know that every bit of it came through suffering. You'll know that the pain didn't break you. It built you. And that's the point. Transformation through suffering is not about proving anything to the world. It's about proving something to yourself. It's about proving that you can endure more than you thought, that you can push past limits you didn't even know existed. It's about proving that the old you, the weaker you, the one that wanted to quit, that version is dead. And in its place stands someone unrecognizable, someone who earned their transformation the hard way, someone who was forged in suffering. All right, here's a hard, hitting conclusion for your entire script in pure Goggins style, short, powerful, and wrapping all 4 keynotes together into one final punch. When you refuse to give up, you unlock the truth most people will never know. You realize that pain is not there to destroy you. It's there to grow you. You learn that discipline is stronger than feelings, that showing up matters more than how you feel. You discover the unstoppable momentum that comes from stacking wins day after day, turning you into a force that can't be slowed down. And through suffering, you transform into someone unrecognizable, harder, sharper, unbreakable. That's the price. That's the process. That's what happens when you refuse to give up.